Start with short questions. Don't go and send them a paragraph. I think at some point, I started with like asking everything. Are you pre-qualified? What are you looking for? Like bedrooms, bathrooms, like almost like a paragraph form. Don't do that. Reach out, gentle touches, one at a time. It creates gets them responding to you more, and it's a better way of warming them up.
And yeah, we can get started. So just to sort of reiterate here, guys, welcome to our Monday call. What we're going to do today, we're going to be having sort of a special guest on. Her name is Janine. She's been with us for a little bit. She's been seeing some good success, so I wanted to get her on here, have her share sort of her insight, her wins, get a little bit of info to, drive all of our newer agents forward, because I know it can be a little bit frustrating. It can be a little bit hard to get over that first hump. So Janine's done it. You can too. So I'm going to have her get started here. And if there's any questions, leave those in the chat below and we'll get those addressed by the end of the call today. Let me just quickly adjust my setup here. All right, Janine, you should be good to go. Just need to unmute and yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I'm happy we could confirm the call today and sort of get you on here, because I know, I think we'd sort of learned about your success 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think you'd been speaking with like Rex, and yeah, whenever we hear, some good things happening, we want to share that with everybody, because it's like a big motivational piece. So for our interview today, right, just sort of to outline the goals of what we really want to cover, right? Just want learn a little bit more about your time in the program, outline just sort of the steps that you took to get to where you're at, and sort of, what other agents should be doing as well. And just really and truly just give some value and motivation for anybody who might be sort of getting started and thinking, oh, things aren't working. It's going pretty slow. I'm not really finding success, because again, it takes time, right? So, Jeannie, if you could, like, quickly, just while we get started here, like, if you could introduce yourself, let everybody know who you are, sort of where you're based, how long you've been with us, the whole shebang there.
Sure. My name is Janine Bergen, and I'm with Remax Associates. It's based out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. So I do mostly residential sales, and I started with you guys in November of 2020. When we were all locked down here and I wasn't meeting anybody new and wanted to attract some new buyers. It took a little bit till I did have some success. So it took my first success of actually, I did have some clients that I started working with, but our market here was so crazy. They weren't happy with what they would be able to get with their budget. So they decided to put it on pause until the future. So my first initial ones from November and December are still in the background, but they're not actively working right now. I first started working with someone in February very actively, who closed May 7th. And then another one March 15th, and they closed May 22nd. So they've already moved into their homes. And then I went through my list of people that I'm working with, and I have about 6 or 7 that are receiving emails on MLS regularly asking questions. A couple that I am taking to homes currently and looking, and we've written some offers. We haven't been the successful bidders because we have bidding wars going on, but my list of current buyers from it that I am showing properties to is about 6. So it's higher than I actually thought it was when I went back to see where they originally came from. They were original contacts through the Facebook program that I did with you. So
awesome. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it takes time. I know, because we've had agents come on and they're sort of wondering, well, I haven't found any real buyers, people that are looking and people that are, sort of looky-loos, people that are just browsing. And, it takes time before those people might come out of the woodwork and actually, start to actively, chat with you and start asking, okay, maybe I can see some properties. And then you get those people out for, listing appointments, or you even just meet them in person. So looking at your time frame, right, it did take about 4 months until you got into contact with that first closing lead, right?
Right.
And it took additional time to sort of nurture that lead and get them to the point, especially now in the market that we're in. Like you can expect to work with buyers a little longer than you would have maybe a couple years ago. So That's
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been writing, especially with the buyers that are being attracted to this price point, the 350,000 and under. You might write with them 10 to 20 times before they get a property, just because the market is so aggressive here.
Mhm.
By
And
the
yeah,
time they're totally educated, because when you take them to a house and you say, "Oh, you're going to have to write $50,000 more to get this," they look at you like, "Really?" They haven't built up that trust yet. Even if you show them and educate them, they most of them are really young, so they're because they're first time home buyers, it does take a little bit more education time and patience to work with them and to build up that trust to say, "Oh yeah, okay, she's right. These houses do go for this price point." So they have to feel that disappointment maybe a couple of times before they really are finding success.
mhm. And especially with these type of leads that are coming from Facebook, you definitely need to put a pretty hard emphasis on actually educating them. Like, instead of sort of trying to get them, okay, let's get you out the door, let's get in the foot of, the foot of another house. If you spend a little bit more time to educate your leads, right, you'll see that you're going to have a larger majority of them that are willing to sort of make that next step with you. So, the more value you can provide them up front, the better chance you'll have of converting, right, a larger percentage. So Janine, just going into sort of your time here, before you were joining the program, where were what was your main source of clients coming in? Right. I
It
know
was referrals.
referrals. Yeah. Yeah. That's what we usually see. And then obviously as the pandemic hit, referrals became few and far between because everybody was sort of, huddled in, not really wanting to make any moves, especially no inventory. So yeah, you have to sort of divert, what you're doing and sort of pick up something new. So what made you decide to implement online paid advertising specifically?
I had tried it in the past, and not with your company in particular, and had a little bit of success. But I found that the way it had been set up, I hadn't been able to track it as well. And when I saw what your program offered and the way the funnels and all that, how it tracked, the management tool is kind of what made me want to work with this one. And I still feel that there's more that I could tap into on it. It's personally, it's been my own time, hasn't been there to do that. But I think there's a lot of features and options and great things that could come from working with it.
Okay. And you said you were doing some other methods. Like, would you mind going into, was it sort of like the same Facebook lead
It was
system?
the exact same thing where they were running a Facebook ad and I was getting leads off of it. I
Mhm.
did close off of that one as well, but I found it very difficult to keep track because there was no management tool with it. So there was no funnel, there was no, I would just get their name and number and have to be the person contacting them. So there was nothing being automatic. And that
Right.
can be really challenging if you are working and it's still a very cold lead and you try to text them or like there was nothing set up, whereas this one you have it set up so it's automatically being in communication. So it's been a lot better that way so that the cold lead or the ones that aren't even willing to communicate, you're not wasting your time on those. The ones that have clicked and are wanting a conversation, those are the ones that are coming in front of me with your system, and I like that.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to spend too much time waiting on somebody to tell you to, leave me alone or tell you that that's the wrong number. So yeah, that's why you have to have something set up, right? Like, you can't obviously if you're sort of like a newer agent, you've never worked, you're just sort of getting off of your exams and you're ready to go, you just enlisted, then maybe it's a good idea to just sort of run Facebook ads and call them right up without having any softwares in place. But when you have more than an hour a day of work, it becomes a pretty hard to keep up. So yeah, it's definitely you need to have something sort of implemented. And were you sort of going and sort of shopping around with any different sort of systems or programs, or like what had made you sort of join up with us specifically?
I can't remember how I found you guys, but you emailed originally, and then I had a conversation on the phone with you guys, and you kind of explained everything. And that's, I figured I'd give it a try. And I'm happy with what it is, and I'm very glad that it worked out. I think yours was the repetition because you kept coming back to me. At first, I didn't like just jump in myself, but you guys kept emailing me and communicating and sending little things kind of like what you have us set up doing on the funnels, and it worked, right?
It definitely works, right? They're two very similar methods of approach, right? And because it's not like an industry thing, or it's not, it's just the type of advertising that you're doing, right? It's you're gathering a bulk of name, email, and phone numbers. You're putting out content that that's going to ring true with that audience, and then if you're able to get on the phone with those people, then you're able to sort of showcase your value, and from there, right? If your value is right, if your value proposition's made correctly and enticing enough, then like you said, it'll be something where you jump in. Same thing with somebody that you're working with in terms of real estate. So that's awesome. Did you have was there a certain goal that you had coming on, or was it just like, I need more clients? The pandemic is sort of taking my referral business.
I had a financial amount that I wanted to increase my sales from last year, and I've already done that at this point this year. So I am like, it was overall, it wasn't just with this particular thing. I just had a goal in mind for myself, and I've hit it already. So now everything else is going to be above and beyond that. So I'm excited about that. So I'm hoping to find more leads out of this. I did want to get in this year. My goal was to close 5 through this, which I wasn't sure if that was going to be a possibility. And I do think it still is, but it's all timing here. Some of the people are just not quite ready. But if I do end up with 5 leads that came out of this year, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, it's sort of timing, and I think we've had other agents in a similar market, right? Like if it's a harder, especially in Canada, like it's a harder time of the year to buy or sell when it's like winter and everything's cold, everybody's inside, especially with the pandemic too. It almost made it like a completely barren sort of wasteland of being a buyer. But hopefully now that summer's sort of getting sort of into play, things are starting to open up a little bit more. We've seen, like, I'm in Toronto right now. We've seen that inventory is actually starting to increase, just as, people begin, for our sake, to like flood back into the city, and begin to like sort of work and sort of look to actually move again. So hopefully, and then by the time, November rolls around, you've had at least 3 more conversions, because I do believe, when the markets begin to open up and sort of the buyers start to flood in and there's going to be enough inventory, it's going to be sort of like a, in comparison to like the roaring 20s, right? It's just going to be all out. Everybody's going to make a lot of money. So by that time, right, we hope that, you're able to convert those extra 3.
And if there are agents that are discouraged and think that the leads are junk or whatever, it took a long time for some of them to turn into something. So 3 months in, I was feeling discouraged, and I was like, oh, I'm not getting any traction here. And I was like, you just get in your own head, and you are communicating with people, but it's just nothing was happening. So just keep going with it. Don't get discouraged, or like push yourself forward, because it could just be right around the corner. And that's something that happens in this business, is it can change in an instant. It can take just one phone call and suddenly you're busy and back in the game. So yeah, especially for the new ones who are finding it hard to get going.
Yeah, I know.
Just keep going.
Yeah, just keep pushing. And I know, like, we have an interview too on the Real Estate University with one of our sort of older clients. I believe his name is Kuldeep. And at that point, like, same sort of thing, right? He'd been working the system for 5-6 months. And then all of a sudden, right, well, he had 2 people message him, right, they were sort of ready to go, and then he had one that was generated that was already ready to go. And then by the time that 5th month had sort of ended, right, he had gone from 0 closings to 5, right? So it can all sort of happen at once. And the fact is that if you have a database, right, those people have needs and wants, and if you're able to get in front of them at the right time, right, and provide them enough value to have them want to work with you, right, you'll be able to make those closings.
And you guys had it set up so that I could put them into, they'll be ready in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever. And I guess you guys trigger a funnel to follow up with them, because sometimes they come back to me and say, hey, yeah, we're still hoping to in 6 months. So you guys have obviously sent out some text that, because I didn't do it. And so they're still in the game. They're still there. They're still getting that communication. And so there's potential for more closings coming up from stuff that's been in the past, right? From contacts made, because the communication's still there. So
Yeah, we've seen even like on month 8, right? Some leads that were say for example, if we started on January 2020, right? September, October comes around, you see a lead that's responded to sort of like the long-term follow-up loop. And they say, yeah, I'm interested, right? So it's like, just because the leads aren't converting and telling you that they're a cash buyer and they're looking to go right now and they're ready, right? It doesn't mean that you haven't generated a closing that you're just not seeing yet. So before I get into sort of going into the follow-up, because that's a big thing that I want to go over with you, right? It's something that if you've closed, right, you've been successful with your follow-up at least once or twice. But before we get into that, I just wanted to reconfirm here sort of the results that you'd achieved and how long it took to get those, right? So just to get sort of a statement here of like how many closings you got and then how many also potential buyers that you were working with over a span of time.
right. So I started with you guys in November, and I had closed 2 by the end of May. So May 22nd, I have 2 closings. And then I have 6 or 7 that are actively getting MLS listings. And out of those 6 or 7, 3 of them I have shown properties to. And then I do have the ones that are in the 6 months and 12-month categories that are still in follow-up and do respond when I do send them stuff. So they're potentially in the future leads.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So that's even if we got half of those, that would be a pretty substantial ROI at the end of the year. So in terms of going into like the follow up a little bit, just with Facebook ads, like you mentioned, if you're sort of not having something work for you, right, you're going to be doing a lot of manual follow up. But the way we have it set up, right, you're sort of going and getting the conversations when they're being sparked. So what does the follow up look like for you after that initial conversation is started?
So after that initial conversation, if I'm in communication with them, I will try to get them to use my app, which is it's got all the MLS on there. They can create their favorites list, and it gets me to know what they like. And I can also follow up and let them know what it's sold for, so that they see that just because they like that house at that price, it didn't actually go for that price. And it creates communication and education. So I have lots of people I have about 20 in the app portion of it. I don't know how many, like I count the 6 that are actually communicating with me, but I do have 20 of them in there probably that are using it, but they don't really respond to texting and stuff at this point. So I don't know how serious they are. So from that, I just try to make sure that they're pre-qualified, because I'm not going to spend a bunch of time driving around. So if that's one of the first things I do for follow-up is, are you qualified for a mortgage? I do try to take them off the app, and only because I tend to find that my phone glitches with it and I don't always get the notification in the go in that app, and I'm not sure why. So if I can get them on direct text with me with their phone number, I prefer to do that. So a lot of my conversations aren't in the management thing, but that's probably more my phone than anything. I need a new phone. I just haven't had the time to do that. So once they're qualified, I try to at least get an in-person meeting as well, if I can. It's been a little bit more difficult with COVID. So sometimes that is when they see something that they want to go look at, and that is the first in-person meeting. If you can get a Zoom meeting with them, those work as well. I do have one of those scheduled for this week, where it'll just be, they're not pre-qualified yet, I know that, but they wanted to have a conversation and meet me. So we're just doing it by Zoom tomorrow. So that's kind of just it's just getting in touch with it, or keeping in touch with them, because once they're looking and set up on the MLS, then it's a matter of them saying, I want to go see this, and then just checking back to make sure that they're still interested, and going from there.
And how often would you say, like in terms of maybe a percentage even, the people that you're sort of starting a conversation with off that initial contact and then taking to your phone, right? Are you finding you're setting appointments with those people more frequently than you are sort of going back and following up with those older people that might have ghosted you or not responded, if that makes sense?
Do I find, yeah, I probably do find that I get more success with that, other than your thing does bring people back around. So if they went quiet, or I've put them into that 6-month category, and then you guys are continuing the conversation, or just the reminders and the auto emails and stuff like that. So I don't know if I've done it long enough to give you a percentage of where that would be. I wouldn't want to just make it up, but I just find that once I'm working with them, or at least have them going to a mortgage broker, I'd rather have them over onto my phone, and it's just easier for me.
Mhm. And then just also for anyone listening to the call here, right? That's a really good point that Janine just brought up, right? Make sure you're using the pipeline effectively, right? There's stages that are set up, right? 3 months, 6 month, 12-month timeframes. The ghost, the homes list sent pipelines, like those are all set up so that you don't have to worry about doing too much manual follow-up for yourself, right? Like Janine said, those like the 3, 6, and 12-month timeframes, those are, very effective in sort of just reactivating, resparking conversations with people that told you, right, they're looking in 6 months, because nobody wants to make a task every month to follow up with someone every couple months, right? So let our system do the hard work for you, right? And just as soon as those conversations get back up and running, that's when you should be sort of exhausting your mental effort towards it. So it's obviously pretty hard to work with online leads. Like they're gonna convert at 1%. Like, so we're not gonna sit here and try to say it's gonna be an easy thing to convert them. But what's your typical time spent on leads? Right from, I know you mentioned like your first closing, right, generated in around February, closed it in about May. So how long are you finding that you're spending with leads before you're meeting with them in person?
You know what? Usually it's not that long. I spend more time looking at houses with them once I've had that initial meeting. So usually, if they're like, we're looking now, and I get them over to a mortgage broker, you could be seeing them. Well, some of them, we started joking. They're like, once they bought a house, they're like, we're so glad we're not going to see you again this week, because they saw me like every day. It felt like for a while, because they were looking at everything that came up on the market in their price range, just trying to get into something here because our inventory is so low. But yeah, you aren't, from the time you get in touch with them, I would say you're probably, if they're really actively looking, you're probably going to see them in that first week. If they have a pre-approval, or within the month, I would say, because there's more than likely something that's going to come up on the market in that month that they're going to want to see.
Mm-hmm. And are you finding what are usually your response times? Are you getting, responses out as soon as you can, like very quickly within 5 minutes? Or are you finding the same success even if you're sort of letting them sit for a little bit, like maybe you're responding in a couple of hours or maybe the next day, right? Like, what does that usually look like for you?
When I started, I was really good at getting in touch with them right away. As our spring has been super, super busy, I have noticed I am slower, and sometimes it's not even till, like, I'll respond to them, but I won't get them their list or whatever they've requested until the next day. So we'll see how that pans out, because it hasn't been as quick as what I'm used to being. But yeah, at first my speed to lead for the first part of it was really good. And I think and all of the leads I am working with are older, like from the beginning of when I started. And I did slow down my ads as of right now, just because I was so busy with referrals actually for the spring. Business that I didn't even anticipate that came out of the woodwork. So it was kind of good, but I couldn't respond quickly, and I feel like I'd be wasting money if I'm not responding to people. So I turned it back, I think, a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes total sense. You don't want to waste the marketing spend if you're not going to be able to get to the leads within 5 minutes, because obviously, every minute that passes by after 5, right, the leads just get a little bit colder and a little bit colder, and by that sort of hour, 2 hour mark, you've lost a lot of sort of juice. The best way to say it, like, you're gonna have a lot harder time getting in touch with them. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely what we see with the successful agents that come in, right? the ones that are sort of converting, like the leads that are converting, will always see that they got to them within, 5 minutes, 90 seconds, right? So yeah, just if anybody like on the call here is ever having issues with speed to lead, right, definitely consider using our text concierge service, and we can take over that follow-up for you. But I want to get into just the last couple of questions here, Janine, and then I'll let you go, right? I don't want to take up too much of your time today. But one question here, just in terms of like the follow-up, last thing would be, like, what are you finding is the best method to actually getting in person with these leads, right? Are you setting up like meet and greets, or are you just going directly for, showing houses? Like, what's your method to actually taking these people from online lead to appointment?
Well, normally I would set up an appointment and I'd meet, and whether it would be buy them a coffee at Tim Hortons, sit down and talk or whatever, but everything was closed here. So it's actually been, even our offices, we were not allowed to have the public come in. So we had no meeting points other than homes. So it really was, your first showing is where you're meeting. Because we weren't even allowed to publicly meet people outdoors even here, just because our COVID numbers were so bad.
Right.
Our restrictions are finally loosening. So the whole time I've been doing this, my first appointment has always been when they've wanted to see a property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it's definitely like it's a weird one right now with sort of like the norms of real estate have all been completely thrown out the window, I'd say. And it's sort of like a new set of norms. So like a lot of the times we would suggest if you're having people that are sort of really actively willing to go see the property first, definitely get that set up. But even if like Zoom appointments, they work great. It's something we recommend, setting up like Zoom appointments, even if it's just like, hey, let's sit down for 5-10 minutes and just sort of chat over Zoom. I just want to meet you, sort of put a face to a name, right? It doesn't even have to be like you're trying to sit them down and say, hey, let's talk about your buying decision or your buying process. Like, just hey, I know like this sort of year with the restrictions, everything's so crazy. I just want to be able to put a face to a name. Let's sit down and just chat for a quick 5-10 minutes and, move from there, right? And the second you're able to get in face-to-face with these leads, that's when the barrier and sort of like they're cold until you meet them. And then as soon as you meet them, right, that coldness sort of fizzles away. And it's much harder to ghost people that you've met in real life. So
That's true. Very true.
Yeah. So last two questions here. Do you have any advice? One, for just any agents that might be around sort of the first 1 to 2 month mark, and that's really starting to become discouraged, right? Like whether that be with lead quality, following up, actually putting in the time to follow up, like, somebody expecting quick results, like what would you say to that person?
I would say keep going. Don't get discouraged, because the results will be there eventually. It's just a matter of continuing to do what you're doing. And if you aren't getting results after 3 to 4 months where you have no traction, then check out the conversation. Where are you missing on asking a question that might change the conversation to make them engage more? But it is just a matter of, I think I had over 400 leads in there, and I do have more than 4 that I think will close out of those 400. So it is a percentage game. So you will have to work hard to find that needle in the haystack kind of who's going to work with you. But there will be somebody there that will work with you once you build the rapport, and it takes time.
And yeah, you definitely, you have to have the right questions too. Like, if you're sort of going into a conversation with the goal in mind of setting them up with a list of homes and then sort of waiting for them to get back to you, right? It's going to be a little bit harder for leads. Whereas, you need to be sort of tailoring the experience to the customer, right? Whether that be giving them a call, setting them up on, like you said, on an app where they can customize their own homes list. Right. But it's an active approach you have to take, right? It's a numbers game. And you're not going to have the leads sort of fall into your hand. It does happen, right? Like we've had agents close within the first week or two, but it's not common. So definitely got to work for the leads, right? Put in a little bit of sweat equity, but it will pay off in the end. And final question here, right? Last one, and then sort of wrap it up, Janine. If there's any questions for you as well, guys, feel free to leave those in the chat below, and we can have Janine maybe answer a question or two if there is one. The final question, if there was any advice you could give to just a newer client, like for example, to yourself when you had just started, what would that be? Like, obviously taking the time is one very good piece of advice, but even if it was like for system usage or for follow-up techniques, like dialing in a specific script, testing more, like what would your piece of advice be for somebody who sort of just finished their onboarding process and is just getting their ads launched?
Start with short questions. Don't go and send them a paragraph. I think at some point I started with like asking everything. Are you pre-qualified? What are you looking for? Like bedrooms, bathrooms, like almost like a paragraph form. Don't do that. Reach out, gentle touches, one at a time. It creates gets them responding to you more, and it's a better way of warming them up. And then just follow up once they do get to the point of you sending a list. Don't just let it sit there as having sent them a list and let it die. See if there was anything on the list that interests them and they want to see.
Perfect. Awesome, Janine. That is that. That was perfect. I really appreciate your time coming on here. And we always really, really appreciate any time we can have a successful agent come on and share their knowledge and their wisdom. And yeah, like we notice it's mostly, they're going to be the same things that are being said, right? Main takeaway here, it's going to take time to get these results. It's a numbers game, percentage game we got to play. Janine, perfect example of that, right? If all goes well, right at the end of the year, you'll definitely have above a 1% closing rate with the leads that we've generated so far. And, Janine, make sure you're sort of taking a look. I think we're going to be uploading some, new stuff to the Real Estate University in regards to reactivating your database of previous leads, right? So that could be something that you might actually be able to boost up your percentage even more, right? Because again, like if we have, 6 or 7 leads that we're working with, 400 lying dormant, right? Even if maybe 100 or 200 of those people have already said no, like definitely not, leave me alone, right? We can send out a mass text, a mass sort of communication just with a question like, hey, are you looking to buy or sell in the next 3 to 6 months? And even if we can spark up like a couple of conversations where the person says yes, right, that could equal, 2 or 3 additional closings that you might not have seen if you hadn't sent. Remember, you've paid for the whole database, and you might as well try to exhaust them as much as you can, squeeze as much value as you can out. So besides my little tangent there, definitely take a look out for that content, which we'll be putting out definitely very soon. But guys, I don't think there is any other questions for Janine here, but I'll leave it open here for a second. But Janine, yeah, I appreciate your time today. I know you had sort of just had to rush here off of an offer. So, we do appreciate that. I'm definitely going to send you over a little post, like a post interview thank you email. So take a look out for that. But yeah, Janine, I won't keep you any longer here. I really, really appreciate your time today. I'll be in touch right after later on today with sort of the follow-up on this. But yeah, was there anything else, you wanted to say or do anything before we let you go here?
No, just thank you for everything that you guys do. I'm glad that you guys are always there whenever I have questions.
Yeah, and we're happy to help. We're happy to answer them whenever you need, Janine. All right. Have a great day, Janine. A wonderful Monday, and we'll talk soon.